about three major opinions. So one opinion said that that is liable for zakah but paid after collected for every year. The second opinion said that is liable for zakah and paid at hawl for every year. So they consider that that itself is zakatable. And that's the majority of the scholars, by the way. And that's the Sahaba and the Tabi'een and the scholars who sided with the second opinion. The third one, they said that is not zakatable. And some of them said you pay the zakah once you collected for 1 year, regardless of how many years there. And now, what Ayofi adopted, they adopted the opinion of the majority of the Sahaba and scholars that that is zakatable. It would be considered money and it is zakatable. Now, for the debt to be zakatable, has to be in good standing. So if the debt is bad debt, you won't be responsible for paying the zakah on that particular debt. Also, good standing deferred debt is liable for zakah, and the lender does not owe zakah on it until every year on the hawl. Bad standing debt is not liable for zakah, as we mentioned. Now, on the borrower side, and that's really very important. On the borrower side, can I deduct the debt that I owe to others from my zakatable base? That's how exactly this is relevant to us. So debt is deducted from zakatable base if it is due by the hawl. If the debt is current debt and it's due by the time of the hawl, then you can deduct it from your zakatable base. Example, someone, for example, has a debt, a mortgage on the house, like it's about like $500,000, and by the time of the hawl, he probably being delinquent on a few payments, and the hawl comes. Would he be able to deduct the full amount of the $500,000 from his zakatable base, or just the amount that is due by the hawl? It's only the amount that is due by the hawl. This is what we call the current debt, and the due amount by the time of the hawl can be deducted. But the debt, if it's deferred, it would not be deducted unless there's certain conditions, unless this debt is used to finance some zakatable assets. So in this case, I give you an example. Let's say a real estate agent who buy and sell houses, and he used debt to leverage these houses. And now remember, buying and selling houses, that's commercial goods. So these goods are liable for zakah. So in this case, because these houses are, in general, by the way, the house that you live in is not liable for zakah, because we'll talk about it, it's a different type of assets. But we're talking about commercial goods. As we know, commercial goods are liable for zakah. So in this case, the debt that he used to leverage for buying and selling houses, that can be deducted because it is a debt related to zakatable assets. Now, also deferred debt incurred for the purchase of zakatable commercial goods, as I mentioned, is deductible from the zakatable base. Now, also you need to understand that the certain assets, they're not liable for zakah for certain reasons. For example, insolvency. If a person is bankrupted or insolvent, he won't owe any money on his money on his assets because he's an insolvent. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Wala sadaqa illa an dhahri ghina." Now, I believe most of our assets, if you think about it here in the US, is actually related to commercial goods. And let me tell you what we call urud tijara. Just before we go into this, I will go very quickly. Doctor, you're looking at us. Are we
No.
short of time?
I'm looking because I'm impressed.
Okay, thank you. So goods, what we call urud tijara. Now, the scholars, they divide the type of urud, and the word urud is from the single word arb, means anything that you show for sale. The scholars said anything other than money, they call it urud. Scholars, they divide urud into two kinds of uruds. Urud tijara, commercial goods, and urud kunya, capital goods. Now, the capital goods are the goods that you use either for your personal or for production. You don't intend to buy it and sell it. But the commercial goods are the goods that you use to buy and sell, like anything for sale. And that makes big difference in how you assess the zakat. If you own any type of commercial goods, they would be zakatable, and the nisab of these commercial goods is exactly as the nisab of gold and silver and money, and will be 2.5% of the wholesale market value of these goods at the time of the haul. Clear? Now, if you own capital goods, let's say someone buy a house and rent the house. He's not intending to buy and sell houses. Now, this would not be commercial goods. That would be capital goods. Why? Because he is providing a living service through this house. This house itself is not zakat. And we get a lot of questions from people. Oh, I bought a house and I rented. Should I pay this? No, you don't pay zakat on the house. You pay the zakat on the rent. But whatever you collect from the rent after the passage of the lunar year, you pay the zakah on whatever left from that. Now, scholars also defined what is commercial goods. You know, again, that's the beauty of the Islamic fiqh. It's really dig deep. And the more you learn about it, it's amazing. Like, you can't just say, oh, this is a urut tijara. No, there are requirements and conditions for any commercial goods to be treated as commercial goods. One of the most important one, that these goods, at the time that you acquired it through exchange or through money, you intended for sale or for resale. So if you acquire it, for example, and then later on you decide to sell it, that would not be treated as commercial goods. Someone has, for example, a car that he's using to drive, and a situation comes where he wants to sell the car. Even if you intend to sell that car, the car will not be treated as commercial goods. It will be capital goods. Once you sell the car, you get the money, whatever left in that, the money, the proceed of the sales as a cash, after the passage of one lunar year, of course that would be zakatable. But will not be zakatable because it is anything related to the car, because it is actually money, it's cash. Also, so you have to intend at the time of acquiring these assets. Also, the scholar said that the way you acquire these assets is through exchange. So if somebody, for example, give you a car, or they give you a property and you intend to sell it, or you intend to sell it at the time you acquired it, would not make it commercial goods. For example, someone inherit business from his father, and he doesn't want to sell it, for example, or inherit it for the first time, he will not be liable for zakah as a commercial goods. There could be another reason for zakah. Maybe he has some cash in that business. That's a different, but that's not as a commercial good. So that would not be treated as commercial goods. Money given in advance for zakah. Can the money be given in advance for the zakah? 1 year, 2 years, 3 years in advance?
Yes.
The answer is yes. The Prophet ﷺ accepted from his uncle Al-Abbas the zakah for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. So there is no problem for a Muslim living in America to manage his zakah and to have the zakah giving all year long. You can do that, absolutely, no problem. And you make you reconcile at the time of the haul. You see whatever you overpaid, you can carry it for the next year, because that's how you intention, no problem. There is another issue about zakah of unlawful assets. Some people, for example, they earn money. Many of us put money in the banks, and some of us may take interest. I don't know exactly what school you belong to or what you think about it, but anyway. For example, that's interest. Or someone, for example, own a business, 7-Eleven or gas station. They sell lottery, they sell alcohol. The Islamic ruling that you should not be involved in this. But here is the beauty things of this, that you don't have to pay zakah. Allah does not want zakah on any unlawful assets, on any haram assets. Do not bother. Also, the interest that you get, don't bother to pay zakah, because that not would be considered a legitimate lawful assets. What you do with these assets, resend it back. Send it back to their rightful owner. Do not get involved in this type of assets, because zakah, the scholar said, as zakatu tamlik. That as zakah, when you pay the zakah, it's an evidence of ownership. Islam look at these type of assets, that the haram assets, they are unlawful assets. So from the beginning, you should not be involved in these assets, and Allah Azza wa Jalla doesn't want the zakah on that money, because the zakah is a purification, and you cannot purify those type of assets, especially the interest that you get from the banks, or if there is any bribery or theft or any type of the assets, no zakah on those, has to be resent back to their rightful owners. Delaying payment of zakah, it is sinful to delay the payment of zakah. Zakah is due at the time of the hawl, period. That money doesn't belong to you. It's not a privilege. It's the right of the poor on your money. So you have to immediately disseminate that money to the poor people, to the people who are eligible for that zakah. And it's sinful to pile the zakah and delay the zakah. As a matter of fact, even if the person pass away, he's still liable for zakah. The heirs has to help the deceased one by paying whatever zakah is due during his life, before even you distribute that money to the poor, to the heirs or the people who will inherit. So before any inheritance, that money, whatever skipped or missed, has to be assessed and paid right away.
Even if he pays, the deceased person paid his zakah?
No,
if he didn't pay.
If he didn't pay.
If he didn't pay.
Exactly. Double payment of zakah, there is rule here called la thaniya fi sadaqah. There is no double taxation in zakah. You pay the zakah once you identify the assets, because sometimes the things get really confusing. But just keep it simple for yourself. Once you identify one reason why these assets to be zakah, just pay the zakah based on that reasons. And that's it. So let's say, for example, a person who has a jewelry store, and he has, it's goods, but also their gold. If he identify it, for example, as a gold, then he pays the zakah as a gold. He doesn't pay zakah as a gold and a zakah as commercial assets. Once you identify one reason why these assets are zakatable, that's it. You pay the zakah based on that reason, or in that illah. 8 peoples are eligible for zakah. Every one of us know these 8 peoples. You can read it in the Quran. Now, let's go very quickly through the application of zakah. What I did here, I created something simple called the zakah tester or zakah filter. Any assets, if you take these assets through this filter, any reason you find why these assets should be zakatable, you stop there and you assess the zakah based on that block. So first of all, the easiest one to think about it is, are these assets for sale? Are they commercial goods? If they are commercial goods, and they carry all the conditions of the commercial goods, then these assets would be zakatable as a commercial goods, 2.5%. If you can't identify it as a commercial goods, we look, are these crops? Then 10% or 5%. 5% if they are irrigated through humanly irrigated, and 10% if it's through rain. Are these cattle, or are these extracted minerals? Are they gold or silver or money? Or are they debt? So, and then you make sure it's, of course, it has to be a good debt, good standing debt. Then we take it, if we apply this concept or that filter, you will be able to see, for example, several types of assets. Real estate, a person who's buying a land. I say, look at the primary reason why you're buying this land. Are you buying this land to build a house? Or are you buying the land because you are in the business of trading lands, flipping properties and so on? Then if that's the case, then these would be zakatable as commercial goods after you deduct any debt related to these goods. Or, and again, you assess them at the time of the house. But if these lands that you buy to build a house or to rent it, for example, someone has buy a real estate as a parking lot, you don't pay the zakah on the market value, but you pay the zakah on the rent, whatever rent. And again, if you think about it, it's not really zakatable. And the rent, once you get that rent, and that rent join your assets, so it's actually, zakah always is on assets. It's not on an income. It's not on a profit or loss. Zakah is a balance sheet item. It's not profit and loss item. It's not an income sheet item. It's a balance item. It's an asset item related.
You don't separate it.
So the confusion, that's exactly what, inshallah, I will get back to this. The confusion that I see from our community, that they get confused and say, okay, I make that much money and am I going to be paying zakah? I said, no. If that money, the money that you made became part of your assets, and one lunar year passed, then that becomes an asset. So it's an asset. Don't confuse it with an income. Even if you earn $1 million and you spend $1 million before the time of the house, there is no zakat on that money. And that opinion, again, IOFI and the Fiqh Council of OIC, which is the most prestigious Fiqh Council in the world, the OIC of Jeddah and OIC of Mecca. And these really, there are intensive opinions and research done in that area. So you may find some people taking some isolated scholars that not adopted by these institutional Fiqh Council. We disregard that. We just go with the mainstream. Also, cars. Again, your car that you drive, that's not liable for zakat. But if you are in the business of buying and selling cars, that's a different story. Then that becomes zakatable, and you assess the value of the cars at the time of the house. Hospitals, clinics, doctors, that they are in the business of treating patients, they don't pay zakat on the property of the clinic. They pay zakat only from whatever they derive after the passage of 1 lunar year. And if they are selling certain stuff, of course, that would be assessed as a commercial goods. Luxury items, most of luxury items, they're not liable for zakat unless they are gold and the person intend to use that gold as a saving. Because many of our sisters, for example, they like to own gold as a saving. But if you have the gold as a jewelry and you use it, except the Hanafi school, they require to pay zakat on that gold regardless, whether it's for as a saving or for jewelry, you pay the zakat on that. But the other 3 schools, they won't require the payment of the zakat on that money or that money to be zakatable unless they are being used as money or as a saving. Some people, for example, I get a lot of sisters, they ask me, would like to buy gold as an investment. If that's the intention, then that becomes zakatable as money. And you pay the zakat 2.5% of the value. You can pay it from the zakat, from the gold itself, or from the value from additional money that you have. The checking accounts.
Can you mark the points so you can make salah and come back?
No problem, because I feel like I'm rushing.
Exactly.
But exactly.
I think let's break with the ibadah inshallah ta'ala, then come back and relax and take
No problem.
If you promise the brothers to answer the question inshallah ta'ala.
Okay.
So let's break for salah and come back inshallah ta'ala.